Almost 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. Nice looking Thursday. Robin, you're going on a flight on Saturday morning. I don't know what it is. Every time you go on a flight, we have some kind of story about a flight that didn't make it. So
I know.
I was worried. You ever notice that?
I have.
Is it just that we notice them, or are they always out there, but they just seem to know? Oh, my goodness. Well, the next one is in our face. It's an amazing story with some real tragedy in it, and one survivor. Her name is Annette Herfkens, and I hope I pronounced her name correctly. She'll tell me if I did or not in just a second. She is the sole survivor of an airplane crash that happened in the jungle of Vietnam. She went back to the plane, from what I understand, crashed into a mountain. She was with her fiance. I'm kind of drawing a blank on that. Anyway, she went back and revisited. So we're going to talk to her about that. She also, by the way, in addition to that, her credentials include studying law in the Netherlands, and she's one of the few female international bond traders on Wall Street. Her book is one you won't put down. It's called Turbulence. It is a true survival story. Annette Herfkens. Good morning, Annette.
Good morning. How are you?
Pretty good. How are you?
All right.
And where are you? Where are you calling
from? Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm calling from New York.
From New York. All right.
New York City. Manhattan.
Robin will be visiting you
Yep.
in a few days. Not personally, but your city there.
Looking forward.
Annette, am I saying your last name correctly?
Herfkens. Herfkens. Herfkens.
Herfkens. Okay.
Herfkens.
Annette, how long ago did the crash happen?
In 1992. I was an investment banker at the time, working in Madrid, and my fiance, we were 13 years together, was setting up a branch for ING Bank in Ho Chi Minh City, and we were off to a romantic vacation on the South China Sea, and he had arranged a trip. We had only 5 days, and it was going to be beautiful and romantic. But when I saw the plane, I did not want to go in. It was, for me, too old and too small. I'm very claustrophobic. And he told me the flight was only going to be 20 minutes. But in fact, it was 55.
Okay.
And then...
why was there a big difference in what he said it would be and what it was?
Because he tricked me. He said it was way too dangerous to go by car. And he tricked me.
Okay. So there was a small plane... And you reluctantly got on the plane, and then what happened?
Well, then the 20th minute we didn't go down. I said, why we didn't go down? I said, well, I had to trick you to get in. And I was very much focused on getting through the flight, and so not as much on the fact that we were flying until we made a gigantic drop. Real people were screaming, and
man.
I was still, but I said, well, a small plane would feel like that, so I was not as scared, but Willem looked at me scared. And then there were accelerating motors, and he grabbed for my hand, and I grabbed for his, and then we crashed into the mountain. Goodness.
Did you pass out?
Yeah, the next thing I know, I woke up, and one moment you hear these motors of a plane, next moment I woke up to really eerie sounds of the jungle. And like a loud silence, so to say, and I felt something on top of me, which was a chair with a dead man, as it turned out. I pushed that away immediately, and then I realized something had happened, and I looked at my left, and I saw Willem still strapped in his seat, and he was dead.
Oh my goodness! What was your physical condition?
I must have gone into shock at that moment. From the moment that I saw Willem dead until the next moment, I'm in the jungle, on the jungle floor. I was heavily wounded. I had about 5 or 6 fractures in my hips. I had collapsed lung, and I had terrible wounds. But I must have somehow gotten out of that plane, despite all those injuries.
You don't remember? You don't remember climbing out of the plane?
No, I don't remember. So one moment I see him dead, I must have gotten into shock. Wow. And the next moment I'm out in the jungle, on the jungle floor with twigs scraping my legs and insects and...
My goodness, how far were you when you finally realized, when you came to your senses again? How far were you from the wreck of the plane?
About 3 feet.
Oh, 3 feet.
It was down the mountain, 3 or 4 feet, but it was down the mountain. So I don't really know how I managed to get out of it, because I must have I must have lowered my body somehow, because it was in a slope. And next to me there was a man alive, still speaking in English even, but he was in a very bad shape. And there were a few more people out on the jungle floor moaning in the beginning.
So they all died, right?
Eventually, this happened at 7 o'clock, and I think by 10 o'clock a.m., everyone had died. It was everyone was dead.
Holy mackerel! So what was your first instinct to do at that point?
My first instinct was listening to my instinct, because I was a trader, so I did not leave that. I didn't let my emotion take over. I just stayed really still, and I observed the situation, and I just accepted it also, I guess. I mean, I'm a city girl, always was a city girl, and now I'm in the jungle, and wow. But I didn't fight it. I really did all the right steps, as they say, for survival. I just observed, and I believed. I really believed. The first thing is that you have to believe that happened. And then the next thing is not to fight it as it should not have happened, because it actually had happened. And I stayed still with that.
So did you have a part of you that said, look, there's an emotion here that I'm going to feel, but I can't feel it right now because it's going to...
Exactly.
Okay, so I think I know where you're going with that. So,
yes.
I mean, you've lost somebody you love and had a terrible thing happen to you, but you will deal with that later, right?
I will deal with that later.
Holy mackerel.
I couldn't, because if I would be crying, then then you get lost into the emotion.
You're a strong woman.
Stay still. Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I was a trader, but it was really...
I don't think that's it.
I think I stayed open. It's just, I control my mind, but in the end, I end up listening to my heart.
I know a lot of traders who are not as strong as you've already explained. I think you're giving credit to the trader trade, but I think it's you, Annette.
I think you're right. I think it was more the fact that I did listen to that voice inside. Also, as a trader, I think I was very successful because I always listened to that side, to that little voice inside me.
Wow.
And I think I did that there too.
So what did you do then? Did you try to set a fire and get somebody's attention? Did you try to walk to a nearby place or something?
Yeah, I thought of all that. But it actually, I had my purse still with me, and I was a smoker at the time, so I had a lighter. And so I thought, I can make like Hiawatha, I can make smoking signals, because that I could not really move, but that my hands, I got that, but it was too wet to do that. So I thought of all kind of, and then I really had to, for a couple of 2 days, I stayed next to the man, but he was becoming more and more unpleasant to look at. There were maggots, and also I had to make a plan to get myself rainbow.
Oh my goodness! You mean next to Wilhelm, your a fiance?
No, not my my fiance was still on the plane. It was next to a Vietnamese man. And he had a watch, and originally I was looking at that watch all the time to see, and I was counting the minutes, but I really, really stayed present. But the most important thing, but I think that kept me as of day one, is that instead of focusing on the ugliness and the dead and the maggots and the insects, I focused on the beauty of the jungle. And I shift that focus, and I was really amazed by that. And every time when I would get emotional or fear to get emotional, I would really, really stay present and focus on the beauty.
Wow.
Every time.
That's a lesson for all of us. And
have pleasant thoughts, of course. Also have pleasant thoughts. Yes.
You know, that might be very philosophical in other circumstances that are not as life-threatening as yours was. You know, we could take that.
That's how I applied it. I did apply that later in life. I really believe that if something bad happens to you, that you really should not fight it as it should not have happened, because that takes a lot of energy. If you really start defining how things should have been, and I really accepted reality right then and there. And I think the same in raising your children. I think you should accept the situation. You should accept it. And then from there, you can, if you stay calm and you stay open, then the course of action will always present itself. So there is a little voice inside of you. You can call it instinct. You can call it the voice of God. But it is there. It's always there in everyone.
You did refer about counting the minutes on the watch, but you also counted other things when you were there, and that helped keep you alert.
Yes, I just counted the days. I did from day to night. I counted. What really kept me, of course. Again, I focused on the beauty. At the same time, I stayed present, and at some point, I said, "Okay, now I have to move away from the man. I need water. I need water." And then I made a plan to get water, and I moved away from the man. I moved to the wing of the plane. Turns out that the material was the insulation material was little sponges, and then I lined up 5 little bowls that I made, and I waited for it to rain, and then I was allowed to take little sips of water out of those soaking bowls every other hour. So yes, I did count.
Wow.
I did count hours. Yes.
So you were eventually rescued, and I don't for the sake of the book, I want people to be interested in the book, obviously. But you were eventually rescued. How long before you were rescued?
8 days. 8 days.
Wow.
Yes, 8 days. But again, first was it mind over matter, and that's why I decided in the end to write the book. But by the 5th or 6th days, of course, I was dying. And I want everyone to know that it was beautiful. It was first mind over matter, but then it became heart over mind, and it became the most beautiful experience. It was beautiful.
You mean
and
the dying? You mean you felt like you were dying, and that's what you're referring to as beautiful?
Yes, it was beautiful.
Did you have a religious experience? Are you a religious person?
Well, I grew up in the Netherlands, and nobody's actively religious. But I did grow up with a Catholic faith. I always had faith, but we're not very religious. But I absolutely had a mystic experience. Absolutely.
And what was can you tell us about the experience, the mystic experience?
Yeah, so that is what I kept for 20 years, and that's what I kept also inside. So I really described at my best as I can in the book. I can just say it was so beautiful. Everything was so beautiful, and I really was one with my environment, and it was just so beautiful. And then I saw all of a sudden this man on the other side of the ravine, and he was dressed in orange, and he kept me back to earth, and that's the mystery that followed. Like, was this mystery man in my life who saved my life, and that's why I went back to Vietnam to see what really happened there.
Okay, was he a real man, or was he a spirit? Who was?
That is the mystery in the book that I want you to find.
Okay.
For many years, everyone thought I made him up, and I thought I made him up because I was of course in a hallucination state without food and without that much water, and my kidney had died in the meantime. So I was of course in another state of mind, but I could always clearly describe that he was wearing plastic orange, like official orange. It was a rain cape, and so people thought he was there to watch me die. It was somebody of the government. It was a Buddhist monk. So we always had been speculating, and well, I did find out when I went back to climb the mountain I crashed on that he in fact was real.
Wow!
Wow!
He saved my life.
And your story does continue on. It's not just about you surviving in the Vietnam jungle, but then you had the funeral to contend with, and especially his mom, because that was really hard for you also.
Yeah, then I became, of course, the moment I was found, then I joined the mourners, and that's what people do, I think, mourners. It's difficult. It's just difficult, and it's awful to lose your child, but that's the same. If you fight it like it should not have happened, then you go on a track, and it becomes an enemy, whereas indeed mourning could be a beautiful phase of connection when it was not for us, but it can be. Because that was unfortunate. But also there were also life is stranger than fiction, because what happened also is that the bodies of the foreigners were mixed up. So in fact we ended up burying in Brit in Holland, and my fiancé was cremated in Sweden. So they mixed up the bodies. It was all very, very painful.
Oh, wow.
And that's why I want to reach out also to the families, of course, of 370. It is, I know from them and from the other families how awful it is not to know where your beloved one is.
And Annette, I'm just guessing, I don't know if you want to respond to this, but you must have been in New York on September 11th, 2001, and this must have the experience that you had in Vietnam must have played a role in your reaction to the attacks on September 11th.
Yes, that was for me an amazing connection to others, because now I was in a situation that I could see how pain does connect. And I wanted to, so desperate to help. And that is it. As a European, I always admire how Americans can organize themselves and really help. And I really love to be a part of that.
But were you in New York that day? Were you on Wall Street?
I was in New York at the time. I knew at the time, and it was amazing. And I volunteered to translate, and it was a horrifying experience. Yeah, my daughter was 3 years old. My son was 1. And we walked downtown. There was this horrible cloud. It was a horrible experience.
Sure.
There was one beautiful aspect to that, and that's what I say, the duality of life. There is always beauty, and the connection of New Yorkers that day, and everyone was a New Yorker. The whole world was a New Yorker, and that's what I also try to say to mourners in general. The beauty is in the connection to each other, and that's actually the part 2 of my book. Is that in my part 1 I connected to God, to the universe. But part 2, I just use that experience, yes, to apply it for my life. But I think we're here to connect to one another. And September 11 is a beautiful example how one can do that.
You really demonstrate that connection also when you talk about Maxie and about taking him to his special needs indoor soccer game.
Yes, thank you. Yes, that is indeed the difference, because I have a typical child, and there are the typical rivalries between mothers and children, and then I have the disabled child, where the disability itself instant connect you with the other parents, which is also a gift. So there are many gifts that come. I think there's always duality in every situation, and if you accept the situation, you can accept both and just shift your attention to the beauty.
You know, you picked a perfect title for the book, because on first glance it looks like the word turbulence is referring to the plane, the first story, but you truly are looking at this very philosophically and applying that same turbulence to so many other things, and that's what makes the book not only a story about somebody else but a story about ourselves.
Yes, that's what I hope to do. That's what I in the end say. The story is not about me. It's about everyone else in that story. That's why I also give all the perspectives. I'm happy you read it. Thank you. That the perspectives from the other side. I really also did Jack, the father of the Brit, my mother. I interviewed them and I put them in there because it was fascinating to me how different we all looked at the same event.
So you went back, just to get back to the story, you went back to the mountain in, I can't remember the year it was. Was it 2006?
Yes.
All right, and how was that? Tell us what that was like. I mean, were you driven to the spot? Did you walk to the spot? How did you get there?
No, we had to climb. It was 12 hours, really breaking his sweat. It was really steep, and I'm not an exercise all that much, so I had to get fit. It's very symbolic. Now I go back as a middle-aged person to this mountain where at the time I did the right things very instinctively as a young person, and so I had to overcome really fears to go back there. The flight itself, and I did, and it was beautiful because of half of my original crew went up with me on the mountain, and they told me indeed where they camped overnight at the time and how they found me, and then indeed the mystery of the Orange Man was revealed right there and then, when after 6 hours of climbing in the sweat and having lunch up there. It was beautiful to connect. They thought I had died. Everyone thought I had died in Vietnam. Yeah. And my book is now translated in Vietnamese, and there was no Facebook at the time. So it was, for them, in their religion, it's really important to save one person's life. And here I am having 2 children. That was beautiful. It was so beautiful.
And some of the other survivors of some of the other casualties also went back. Is that right?
Yeah, that was Jack, and I was in his footsteps because he was. That is unfortunately an example of somebody who did not accept exactly what happened at all. And he went back, and that was great, and found out what happened. But he never quite got over the loss of his son, and because he doesn't know what happened, we still don't know exactly what happened. And we became friendly, and he's now in London. He's still in the UK. He's elderly. I know he's reading my book. I've been corresponding with his granddaughter, and we might have actually a memorial service up on the mountain. Somebody in Vietnam is planning that. But he did not. He was the one who opened the coffin in the first place because he had suspected foul play. And he always suspected foul play. And perhaps there was foul play, but at some point, I guess you have to accept to live your life. And
yeah. Just like the plane that went down the Malaysian Airlines, right? We may never know.
We may never know, which I know from the other victims. It's awful to know. I like to connect immediately also with the other family members in Europe, and I called the embassy because there was no Facebook, and I spoke to the the wife of the Swedish man who traveled in the plane, and she said every night she started crying. Every night she went to sleep wondering what he felt when the plane went down. Yeah. And I said, well, I can assure you, it was very short, and there was no torture. It was very fast. And she was so happy that she made all the difference for her. Later on, she returned the favor to me because he actually had buried my fiance. It was awkward, but the tragedy of errors.
Wow. If you're just tuning in and you have become spellbound by our guest, she is Annette Herfkens, and I hope I did your name right there. The book is called Turbulence, a survival story. Just to recap, Annette is the sole survivor of an airplane crash in the Vietnamese jungle. She tells that story beautifully, and you don't want to stop listening, or in this case, reading. And there's also some bigger thing here. You're a very philosophical person. I think maybe more religious than you're letting on, or at least more spiritual than you're letting on. You clearly have a grasp of what needs to be grasped at any given time in your life.
Yes, no, I'm guided by I'm guided by God. I'm guided by something bigger than me. It's just that for the moment you start actually trying to get an image of God, people fight about it, and then I just right. Right. So I'm absolutely guided by the inner voice inside me. I think that is the voice of God.
You are a beautiful lady, by the way.
I'm not taking credit at all for my survival, nor the way I was just open to it. It's just a matter of being open. And as soon as your mind closes up, you get scenarios, and they're not true in your head. You make scenarios that are just not true. And so it might as well not make scenarios in your head. That's what I learned.
But you also bring to light all of the normal things that people have to go through, like relationships, wondering if it's going to last, wondering if you could have done something else if it doesn't. You really give hope to the regular person, because everything you speak about just comes from your heart, and everything from the heart is truly within reach of everybody.
Yes, I think that's thank you so much. That's exactly what I believe. Thank you. Thank you.
So do you still carry with you some pain? Are your kidneys working?
I have one, but apparently I can. I have still many years to go. One kidney is fine. I just should not pick up kickboxing or something. And apparently my face is slightly deformed, people say, but I really never.
Let me see. Wait a minute. No, you're a beautiful lady. What are you talking about? I'm looking at your photo.
That's what my sister says, and people say it's slightly different than it used to be, and but other than. Yeah, no, I'm.
Hey, my face is slightly different than it used to be, and I didn't crash into a mountain.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's not slightly either. It's like a lot different than it used to be. You're a delight to talk to, Annette. I want to be sure that the listeners can get your book before we run out of time. I have a copy. She sent me one. I'm going to give it away to one of you. If you want it, call me 622-9622. That's the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline. You'll get the book. The rest of us have to go buy it. Annette, do you have a website you can tell us about?
Yeah, that is www.AnnetteHerfkens.com. Apparently my name is complicated, but Annette, N-T, Herfkens, HERFKENS.com.
And let me tell you, Robin made it easy for everybody. If you just go to WOCA.com, look at the guest list, you'll see Annette's name and the website. Let me give away this book. Good morning, you've got the book. Who's this?
Good morning, this is Kathy. What an amazing story. You are an amazing woman.
You're not kidding, Kathy. Well, you do have the book.
Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome. It'll be waiting for you, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, you're going to sell a lot of these. And you know, you did the perfect thing. You left us wondering about the guy in orange.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the way to sell a book. That's the way to do it right there. Annette, I love your accent, and I just loved this conversation. Thank you so much for being on the air with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
If you're ever in Florida, come on in, and Robin will be in New York, so if you see her, just wave, and she'll come and have coffee with you. Annette, thank you so much for being on the air with us today.
Thank you.
All right, we will move forward. We'll take a little break and be right back.
Broadcasting from the Paddock Mall Studios, this is WOCA, Ocala, Gainesville, The Villages, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Parts of the Midwest picking up the pieces after storms ripped through in Wichita, for instance.
Downing power lines, ripping off roofs, knocking over a freight train.
Fox's William Lajeunesse. Meanwhile, the National Weather Service says that chances have grown. The much-feared El Nino weather phenomenon will strike the northern hemisphere this year. Another person's being held in the case of the deadly South Korean ferry tragedy.
Prosecutors detaining a man whose company owned the sunken ferry, suspecting he knew it was overloaded. He says he is sorry for those who died. It's reported the ship routinely carried too much cargo and that regulators ignored it. Meanwhile, bad weather today at the wreck site, meaning divers found no more bodies, just under 36 people still missing.
Fox News Radio's Alistair Wanklin in the Asia Bureau. Fox News, we report, you decide.
Get more control over your small business with ADT Security Services. Through June 1st, get $250 instant savings on select ADT business packages. Get 24/7 burglary monitoring, a motion detector, 2 wireless cameras, and a lot less worries about your business. Call ** ADT from your cell phone. That's ** 238. It's savings made simple. ADT, our business is helping your business. 36-month monitoring contract required. For applicable terms and conditions, visit ADT.com. Florida EF 0001121.
You put up with enough squealers. That annoying coworker? Squealer. Your kids fighting? Squealers. And that rat, Billy Parker, in the 5th grade. Big time squealer. So don't take squealing from your brakes. Get up to a $50 rebate Visa card on qualifying brake purchases. $50. Conquer the job with Napa Know-How. And participating Napa Auto Parts stores offer
Hi, this is Sam Roberts with Air Ducts Heating and Air. I've been in the air conditioning business for years, but just recently my wife and I decided to open our own business. It's a difficult economic environment, but praise God, we've been doing just fine. And I'd like to take this time to thank all of my customers. I'd also like to invite you to give Air Ducts Heating and Air a try. You see, I don't have the high overhead of having 30 trucks on the road, dozens of employees, etc. And that means I can give you the absolute lowest rock bottom price on your new AC system. When you call Air Ducts Heating and Air, 215-4624, that's 215-4624, I personally will come to your home and give you a free, no obligation in-home estimate. Air Ducts Heating and Air is a family-owned and operated business, and it'll be our pleasure to help keep your family comfortable.
Call today, 304-6766. That's